I've always loved the story of Hagar. And so when I needed to write a piece for my college class, late last winter, I guess, I wanted to write the text about the story of Hagar. So I did. And then I was like, I may as well fact check this text. And I thought I knew what the text was about, and I didn't actually. I'd forgotten that the story of Hagar actually has 2 wilderness scenes. And so this piece is taken specifically from her first time in the wilderness when she runs away from Sarah. Something else I discovered that I had been misunderstanding about this story is I always thought God said, like, I am the God who sees you. But that's not actually how the story goes. An angel comes to her and says, you need to go back to Sarah, but I'm going to make your son a nation. And in response to that, she names a well, which means well of the living one who sees me. And so I realized actually that in seeing the story in this perspective, you begin to recognize the heart change that happens in Hagar, and that ended up inspiring actually how I musically wrote it then as well. It's this huge push, or I've just heard this kind of idea, even like within Christendom, that the God of the Old Testament is very not lovable and doesn't seem to be loving. And it's been kind of my passion to recognize how God was very present, even for minorities. Like, she was probably Egyptian, living with Hebrew people. She was a slave. She had no choice about where she was. So everything that's been happening to her basically just says she's not worth anything. And so this moment of God actually sending an angel because she's that important, and the fact that it shows up in the biblical story, like, she gets an entire chapter just for this wilderness experience, says a lot about actually God did value her a lot more than we would necessarily think of right away. And I was curious. I'm like, so what mode would be authentic to this time period, to this music? And conveniently, both like Arabic and Jewish music would use a similar mode. I decided to use that mode so it would sound Middle Eastern. And the other thing that I decided to do kind of at that point is I wanted to represent like her thoughts as well as what the story was actually happening. So it's 2 choirs. The more like upfront choir is telling the story, and the choir in the background is just chanting her thoughts most of the time. And the song begins with this chant, unseen, unknown, alone. And then that song ends with, I'm seen, I'm known, I was never alone. When she recognizes that in her story, she was never actually alone. I wanted to tell the story. And I think sometimes in telling a story, we can say a lot more than trying to say what we meant to say. 2 musical moments that I really love is when the angel is speaking to Hagar and he says, find comfort, O daughter, God has a plan. And at that point, they're still working to get it, but the lower voices come in, and there's a pitch there that's never been present in the song before. And if it's sung right, it's very comforting in how it sounds. So I love that moment. I think even the people whose lives look most put together have had moments when they don't feel seen. And if you listen to like our language, like you say things like, oh, I see, or like, I don't feel seen. And those actually have a lot to do with knowing, like, I know that now, or I feel like you know me. And I think we all have those moments where we don't feel seen or known. I guess it's just a reminder that even when we don't feel seen, we are seen because God sees us. And people who walk into the room acting like they know what they're doing don't always. Like, be ready to take the risks that make you feel and look stupid so that you can learn. I think it's maybe harder for us as women to detach ourselves from our art. So that's a strength because I think we bring a lot of heart to our art, but then it also can be hard to do that. And I would also just say it's worth putting time into. I know that what like our culture often values in women is the family life, which is good. And I value that too, but that doesn't mean that doing art is any less valuable. It's worth putting time into. I think the people, and I should say it to them in person, that don't get thanked enough are the singers. I know, because I've been singing with Cantata the last couple of years, that they put hours and hours into learning this music. And sometimes they really don't like it in the process. And they have to face this thing of like, I don't know where this is going. I don't even know if this is going to be good. And yet I'm going to believe enough in supporting these young composers that I'm going to try. Thank you. That is a gift. We don't say thank you enough.